I'm going to introduce the speaker, Mangala Sunder Krishnan. He's engaged in the development of technology tools and enhanced learning components as well since 1992. In addition to his own research in theoretical chemistry, primarily he wanted to focus on chemistry and animations of chemical concepts. Of course, he's had the privilege to work with colleagues of his for more than 20 years in the development of online learning portals and higher education, andragogical and pedagogical as well, and to a limited extent in school education. His focus is currently on building a program for present and future skills using IT sector in all areas of science, engineering, humanities that will focus on skills for massive employment opportunity. Please put your hands together for Mr. Krishnan.
Thank you.
He's currently a professor and head of the department at IIT Madras in chemical engineering department. Thank you.
Everything digital matters for education and employment was a topic given to me. Almost 99% of the time, I don't get to choose the topics when somebody invites me. Therefore, I have to learn something more, and I don't mind looking stupid because I'm in a classroom all the time. Okay? So I'm used to students thinking whether this teacher knows anything or whether this teacher, whatever he or she knows is, do I understand? And this perplexing looks, half sleepy looks, all those things, but none of that here. There's a very beautiful anecdote which I'll tell you at the end about the whole thing about education and so on. But I want all of you to recall, I'm sure many of you know this, recall the 3 fundamental principles of teaching that Sri Aurobindo proposed. They are very relevant, almost so many tens of years, decades of what he said, decades after what he said. And today, I will tell you, we will work on one of those principles only. Okay, now, this gadget, let me see how it works. Which one goes forward? It's only a pointer. Oh, then it's good. Then I don't need a gadget. That's good. Okay, the first principle. Nothing can be taught. It's surprising teachers have no role. No. What it means is a very, very philosophical sense. I'll explain at the end what he meant by this. You can only be, in all the education sector, as a teacher, you can only be a facilitator and not a sage on the stage, but a guide by the side. That's what the teaching process is all about. You cannot make anyone learn, but you can lead them to learn. You cannot teach everyone everything that you want, but you can tell them how to do that. There are much deeper connotations to what this statement is. But the second principle is even more important to all of us as parents. When we expect our children to be engineers, doctors, or whatever. And in India, these 2 are the first 2 primary suggestions, and then only after that, the engineers choose to become IITians, and the doctors choose to become the MSCNs or whatever it is. Okay? And then we don't worry about the rest. That's not true. The second principle of teaching is mind has to be consulted in its own growth. Do not force your children to learn what you want them to learn. Force them not. Guide them and lead them and take them to what they want to learn and find out what faculties that they have which are excelling in that children. Lead them to that faculties. Lead them to enrich that. I don't want any of your children in IIT. Please, I'm sorry to say this. Because half of the students that I have in IIT Madras are not interested in listening or learning what we wanted them to learn. They are interested in something else. They've already fixed up their mind. What we are interested is to lead in education to the path in which the individual can excel. Mind has to be consulted in its own growth. But the third one is absolutely beautiful, that Aurobindo said, to work from the near to the far, and from that which is to that which shall be. That which is our children. That which shall be are the futures. We are supposed to work in that end. That is where the role of the teacher is. That is where the role of education, employment, and digital age, non-digital age, analog age, I don't care what it is, all the ages that you have, all the developments that you have are supposed to lead our younger generation from what they are to what they want to be in their own faculties, not in your preferences, but lead them to that and guide them. This is the role of all of the digital age today in education and employment. Okay? Now, I'll get to the details of some of the efforts that the government of India is involved, and I would concentrate mostly on the third part, that which is our current education scenario, the 4,800 or 4,900 engineering colleges and about 75 new medical colleges which were supposed to be announced a few days ago, to the existing about 500 plus medical colleges, and approximately 40,000 colleges in arts and science, and about 900 plus universities, that which is to that which shall be, that we shall be the world leaders 50 years from now. We don't worry about everything else. Okay? The rest are mechanisms. The rest are processes that you have to build. If you build a good process, you get to the end very quickly. If you build a bad process, you will have to go back and forth and come again, make several circles, sometimes get into a loop, never come there. But processes are important. And today, what we have in the digital age is approximately 200 million children in India can be reached for education. 200 million. There is no country in the world which has that many young population. There's no country. I mean, China may have it, but there's no other country which has this kind of numbers that we have. And how many are there in the colleges? How many are there in the schools? Any guess? Approximate numbers, ballpark figures. Schools? About 65, 70 million, 60 million. And how many in colleges? About 25 to 30 million, 25 million. Our capacity to build the faculties in our country is 3 times more than what we already have. And there is no better time than today, which is the digital era, that would allow us to reach all of them. And therefore, what is needed is not that we need another million teachers or another 2 million teachers. Oh, if they are available, I will take them. We don't have them. But we have 100 million students. How are we going to reach? And we have the technology today, the tools, and fortunately, starting from an early period of approximately, I believe, 1999, I've been associated with the process of digital learning and online learning. So that's 20 years as of now. And I had a very, very, very scholarly mentor from the Carnegie Mellon University, Professor Paul Goodman. Unfortunately, he is no more. But Paul Goodman was a cognitive psychologist and also who worked on organizational building, organizational roles, organizational management, and he has a beautiful book in 2013, the year he died. He published a book called The Organizational Learning Contracts. It's available. It's a fantastic, I believe it's an Oxford University Press book. What do we learn from experiences and how do we proceed? Government of India for the last 20 years, which I mean IITs are obviously run by the Human Resource Development Ministry. IITs run themselves. They are funded by the Human Resource Development Ministry and given the focus on how to build the society from the governmental principles and policies and so on, but IITs run themselves. They are absolutely independent organizations, and there are, like that, about 230 centrally funded institutions. In the beginning, about 20 years ago, what we did was to found a program called the National Program on Technology Enhanced Learning. It is technology enhancement. It is not technology enablement. If you have a smartphone, you will do certain things. And for the smartphone, certain things will be built up. If you have a regular phone, you can only do certain things. It is enabling. Enhancement is something different. Enhancement is a cognitive ability in using a technology to learn something better with the technology than without it. Therefore, the cognitive process of learning is something that we have to make use of, and this program was founded with that as a principle in 2003. And on the record, today morning only, I spoke to another university on a similar theme, wherefore I'm rushing here, I had to rush here. Please understand, this is the only country, I would like all of you to recognize this is the only country in which a government, irrespective of who is part of the government, a government has been, without any blinking in the eye, has been supporting a digital learning for all its colleges and all its students and all its children for the last 20 years. Ever since we told them, please do this. Please continue on this. This is the only country that the entire program is funded by the government of India. Okay? We create coursework, we create training materials, we create learning atmospheres, we create learning cycles. Everything is fully funded by one government. There is no government in the world which would provide online digital content for its citizens as India has done. Okay? This is important for us to recognize, which I have mentioned probably in the okay, I must have an acknowledgement somewhere else. Okay. Now, the three components that we look at in education and employment. We want everybody to learn. Then how do we assess? How do we quantify? Therefore, you see there are three corners here on this triangle. The content, or what is known as the Open Educational Resource, OER, is a term coined by the UNESCO and officially made a term for online content, open educational resources. This is one component. The second component is those who go through this, those who learn through various processes. These are two examples of what we have. They certify, they get credits, and therefore they get degrees. Irrespective of whether it is online or not, this is what our universities have been doing. The content or the OER is away, but the content from textbooks were there, the content from the university's own curriculum were there. But now we have changed this to a slightly more open format. Okay? But this is the second part. That still doesn't give the individual the opportunity to get into any place he or she wants. You need the skills. You need to build appropriate skills. You need the faculties. For example, IT students, if they don't know how to program, what good is their IT? I mean, they all know how to write a program code. That's because that's how the course was taught. But if you ask them, give a title or a problem and say, program it, no. So how do we build that skills which allow one to repeat the task more and more efficiently and more effectively, and to the point that a company prospers or an industry grows or a country builds. So the skills is the third component. All these three components have to meet. They cannot be independent of each other. So the digital world today allows all of them to meet. I'll just tell you the rest of the 20 minutes, the story that we have been part of. Okay? So there are three projects that I am associated with. The NPTEL from the very beginning, and the National Mission on the Education through Information and Communication Technology, and the third one called the SWAYAM, which is Study Web Actives by Young and Aspiring Minds. In 2016, both of these were absorbed into SWAYAM. In 2009, NPTEL was absorbed in NME-ICT. So you can see the progression that this is a much more general, open-ended learning process that we have today, that the government has created. Okay? And I do want to, yes, this is a slide I was looking for. I do want to thank the Ministry of Human Resource Development, our parent ministry of all the institutions, for funds and advisors in the project. Okay. What do we have? Of course, we have a very beautiful, very academic and intellectual who ran the whole process, Professor M.S. Anant, the former director of IIT Madras for the last, I think from 2001 to 2011, and now Professor Bhaskar Ramamurthy, they are both chairman of these large educational projects that we have. Now, there are, of course, these are our own stories. What do we have on the online digital content from the engineering side alone? We have close to about 1,800 courses. There are, if you think about the engineering and technology science branches in a typical technology environment, there are probably about 20 to 25 disciplines, and each discipline runs through a 8-semester program of roughly 30 to 40 courses. So if you think about it, all topics have been covered so far in a publicly usable 30 to 40-hour educational content, 36,000 videos. I mean, this is very old. We have 54,000 now from NPTEL alone. What we have is about 1.5 times this. And we render them free. The most important, it's free. It's free to use. It's free for one's own download and re-edit and repurpose the whole thing. No charges. It's free to modify. It is a copy left on the website, which is the copy left policy. It is not the copyright, which is put up and given to a publisher to hold it as his or her right. The difference is very clear. The Creative Commons is a copy left policy argument, and we run it as a Creative Commons copy left with CC is the Creative Commons. By means whatever you use out of this you should attribute, give the source reference, and SA means since you took this for free, any development of this you should also make one component free. You can do commerce on the part of it, but that should be a Linux source code, that should be free. If you decide to buy Red Hat, that's your choice. If you buy Ubuntu's professional services, that's your choice, but Ubuntu is freely downloadable. Likewise, any modification of any of these freely used content should be also made free. These are the conditions under which Government of India has permitted us to build the digital component. And of course, I will talk very quickly about the NPTEL component on the digital age and then go to the other platforms. Today, we cover all the engineering branches which are major undergraduate disciplines you can think of, basic sciences, and approximately the number of courses which have text only and courses which have a lot of videos in them. You can see that the numbers are continuing to increase, and these numbers go up all the way to approximately 1,400 video courses and approximately 500. Now it's about 500 courses. And so the whole thing is about 1,800 to 1,900. This is all free. And these are full 40-hour lectures or 30-hour lectures. Some of them may be 20-hour lectures. You do what you want to do with it. Okay? Nobody tells you. But if you want to participate in the dialogue and the discussion, and you want to work with the professors or you want to interact with them, the digital component, we have a process called the MOOCs, which later I will cover. Okay? And the lectures are all like this. You know, sometimes I don't know how many of you have made a video. See, I know there's a camera which is recording me, and I know this video is going to be in some common form. I'm not afraid of saying what I wanted to say. But how many of you have recorded a video of your own here, just in the audience? Okay, the others should try recording it once. And more importantly, you should show this to your daughter or the son and tell them how you look like and how you are communicating. I think that exercise is worth it. I had a beautiful experiment. My daughter does not agree to what I say today because she said she never said this, but even in my imagination, I think this is what she said to me when I first recorded the video. Okay? 2003, I believe. She was about 8 years old. Yeah, to 1995, 8 years old. So NPTEL project started. We now have to record video lectures. So I go to the studio, I record the first lecture on quantum chemistry, okay, subject I teach for the undergraduates. And my wife, of course, doesn't get involved in all of these things. She says, education, if you are home, be home. Don't be home and be in your office. That's her only comment right from day one. And it never worked. For the 25 years, it has never worked, or 35 years. I've always been home with my office there. But the point is, my daughter said the same thing. She said, Appa, what is this? Is this what you teach? I looked at her and said, yeah, something like that. Now I understand why none of your students understand anything. One line. You are trying to create a revolution, and then somebody who is close to your heart comes and tells you, what nonsense are you doing? Okay. I think you should have it. Your wife's should comment on you. And the husbands are usually much more, I think, slightly gentler than the wives when it comes to commenting. Now, I'm sure you will not shout at your wives as much as your wife is ready to shout at you, most of you. But the point is, it is important to recognize that when you are creating lessons for the public and for classes and students in a digital era who are not part of your classroom, who are not interacting with you on a day-to-day basis, you have to follow certain principles and certain requirements. You have to say who it is meant for. You have to say what the person will learn at the end of all of that. You have to say that. And you have to also tell how you are going through the various lessons, which lecture is what. At the end of each lecture, you summarize. In the beginning of each lecture, you say what you are going to say, and then you say, and then you summarize. Therefore, you repeat 3 times in each lecture. There's a fantastic anecdote about this. I'm surprised that every one of you is awake after a good lunch. Okay? Therefore, this anecdote is not applicable to you. Okay? This is applicable to the audience. Professor Anant went to, as a student, he went to a church in one of these days. He was in Florida as a PhD student. And he listened to the priest, looked at something, he wrote down something, and then at the end of the sermon, he went to the priest and said, "Father, you spoke extremely well. I understood almost everything that you said, but I have only one comment to make." What is it? "Why do you say everything 7 times? Okay. The father looked at him and said, "What do you mean?" "Look, I am a student, PhD student, and I want to be a teacher. So usually if I go to, either I give a lecture or I listen to somebody, I write down. I see this point you have said 7 times, in so many different times, this you have said." So the father was extremely pleased. And he said, "Young man, I never realized that I did this 7 times, but you know, in the school of parish where they teach me how to give sermons to people, they say at any point of time only 1/7 of the congregation will be listening to you." Okay? No, here everybody is off. It's completely on. So I don't have any problem on that. But the point is repetition. Digital age does not mean no repetition. Digital age does not mean one teacher teaches, everybody listens. Digital age does not mean there is one module, everybody learns a module. Yes, there is only one Gita, but there are 15,000 representations of Gita, maybe even more. Each one teaches a group of people in a different way. Each process is a different pedagogy of reasoning, of pedagogy of learning. Therefore, digital age, even though you see a lot of material today, you would understand that after some time, there is a certain audience for a certain type of digital medium and a digital representation. And what you want to do in an academic setup where you want to build students and you want to build capacity, you want to basically multiply, not replicate. The difference between the two is very, very clear. Multiplication is not replication in terms of creating content. Therefore, you have to use technologies, you have to use your own methods, and you have to use your own visual representations. Therefore, each teacher has a certain uniqueness, a certain stamp, a certain faculty. That is important, and that comes out. And we have today, if I have to give you a small riddle, let me see. How many students do you think today are enrolled in higher education? Approximate number?
405.
How much?
405.
405 is what? Million. No, nowhere near that. No, we would love to. We would love to. That's the total number of young people in India. Yeah. But how many students are in colleges, in higher education? How much? 5 million? Okay. Pretty close, but it's more than that. About 35 million. 3 crores. 3 to 3.5 crores are in higher education. You know how many teachers have their PhD qualification and are in a potential to do any research, continue with them? Approximately? About 2 lakhs, 2.5 lakhs. The teacher-student ratio is 1:100. No country can improve. Okay? It's impossible for you to become a super nation. The teacher-student ratio, most engineering colleges are told, most academic institutions are told that accreditation will be given only if it is 1:12. So they invent teachers. They find teachers who are not teachers. They recruit them. But the point is, we are recruiting them not because we don't want to recruit teachers. We just don't have them. We just don't have enough PhD qualified, or we don't have enough educationally motivated, teaching-centric people in the country. Therefore, the digital age that we have here in this whole process is a process of the gurus going out to the Shikshyas. The Shikshyas are all over the world. The Shikshyas are all over the world. Okay? The network is flat. You reach from anywhere to anyone. So therefore, the gurus are now chosen by the Shikshyas, not the Shikshyas being chosen by the gurus today. You teach well, there are many more followers to you, there are many more people to you. This is a Shishya Kulam. This today is no longer a Gurukulam. We have to do it that way only. Institutions which cannot bring in so many students inside obviously have to do the other thing of reaching out to students by going out. So you open the gates outward, you don't open the gates inward. Because you don't have the capacity to build inward. IIT Madras today can take only 950 students in a given year undergraduate, and most of them are in double rooms or triple rooms. We don't have the infrastructure. Okay? We cannot suddenly take 3,000 students or 4,000 students. Therefore, the technology of reaching out and distributing your learning material so that those who want to learn will form small groups of learning, and they will form their own islands, and they will profit from the lessons which are available from some of the best teachers, was the concept in the digital age. Now, the Swayam and all of the country is completely pushing. Okay? So the lectures are recorded in multiple formats. Some speakers would love to, this is, I believe, is probably TV Prabhakar from IIT Kanpur. I mean, his face looks familiar to me. There are teachers who use chalk piece and board in the video room. Nothing wrong with it. There are teachers who would use PowerPoint slides. There are teachers who would use animations. And then there are those who would go onto the internet and do interactive teaching learning. Methods are different. Purpose, end goal is the same. How many of the students are able to do what you wanted them to learn? So keep the purpose clear. So chalk and board today does not mean, the internet does not mean, the technology tool does not mean the chalk and board is out. Chalk and board is out if you don't write well, if you don't speak well, and you are on the video. Then the chalk and board is useless. But if you speak extremely well, clearly, and you write extremely well, chalk and board can be a beautiful way of capturing the videos. In fact, the most popular lecture of NPTEL and some of the other worldwide lectures, more than 5 million, 10 million people looking at it, is simple, one chalk piece, one side, this side, there's a duster, you write something, after some time you erase this, no notes. The speaker is a fantastic speaker. The subject is conveyed. So digital world does not mean that we have to use all the digital tools. But we have to use the tools in such a way that the message is conveyed, the message is repeated, and the message eventually takes the person from what he or she is to what he or she shall be. That is the third principle. We will come back to this again. So I know I have another 5 minutes, so let me very quickly run this through. Okay? There are many ways by which you can prepare all these digital resources. We have all of them in hundreds and thousands of copies in this websites of the Swayam and NPTEL. So I'm very happy that standing here after 20 years when the project was started, in which I am no longer a member. The NPTEL, I'm no longer a member, I'm outsider, because I decided that enough was enough. The younger people could be much more enthusiastic, much more knowledgeable in technology, and they will push their generation's learning better than some of the older guys like us. But it's such a fun to sit back and watch the way the projects are evolving, watch the way the government is supporting the digital era. You can see that there are many ways by which you can take all the digital world, you take the workshops, you run local chapters in colleges, you run exam preparations, you run speech to text, you run subtitles, you run online courses. So the last part that I wanted to tell you in the digital era that Swayam is very seriously important, very seriously pushing, is the online certification. Okay? I'm sure many of you know the word MOOCs, M-O-O-C-S, isn't it? Was it talked about? Massive open online course. How many of you have heard this? Okay, I think you should look up too, or if you have young children, please allow them to look at edX courses, EDX courses, or Coursera courses, or even some of the other online courses. The massive open online course is now currently the technology tool that we are using to reach out massive hundreds of thousands of students open. All the content is on a network. Online, obviously it's online. They're all freely downloadable and freely accessible, and inputs can be taken. And it's a course, therefore it's timed to a certain starting period, date, and an end date. Therefore, these are certification processes which now the country is running. And approximately today, we have what is called the NOC was the starter. This process was started by me before I left the NPTEL project in the whole of the system. The MOOCs was introduced by IIT Madras. And what we have is, obviously, we have online courses, but unlike the traditional, the standard MOOCs model, the examination that we run is a proctored examination. Therefore, the students have to identify themselves. Their identity is verified. They go to an examination center, and we check that they are physically present in writing the examination. Therefore, the certification process becomes more credible. Otherwise, the certification process is incredible. If people certify themselves on their own in the internet, you do not know what is happening. In fact, this credible, incredible, there's a very nice thing. When lasers were invented, it was Charles Willis Lamb Jr., if I remember the analogy correctly, or the name. Charles Willis Lamb Jr. was one of the pioneers of lasers, and he won the Nobel Prize for that. He had a poster in his office which says beautiful things. It's a newspaper article which says the incredible laser, and so many beautiful things about what lasers can do, all those things, etc., blah, 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 stories. And then Charles Lamb had circled, I believe, the word incredible and put an arrow, for credible lasers, please come inside. So, credible learning, you have to work through your way. The online certification process is a very credible process today. There are about 700 courses. Yeah, I should wind up. Let me very quickly summarize the online process. In the digital era, we have discussion forums in the online courses limited to the period of the course opening period. And then we have certificate exams, the video lectures in schedules, assignments online, and then even the faculty members come online once every 2 weeks during the period and clear the doubts of the students, like a webinar or like a Google Hangout or something like that, which the technologies you are all very familiar. So this is currently the process of the government of India, and you know approximately how many people are now running. Until 2018, last year, we had finished 1,045 courses and 20 examination runs, and a little more than probably 20 lakh students have registered, and more than 2 or 3 lakh students have certified themselves. You can see the pattern here. 2014, when I started this process, there was 1. 2016, when I left, there were 29 courses. And in 2018, NPTEL alone has 270, and currently today, this project of the government of digital content creation and digital content assimilation and certification involving teachers, involving students, involving the general public is now 750 courses currently on certifiable. Students have registered. More than a few lakh students are registered, and probably about 15% of them will write examinations. UGC has allowed this to be a credit transfer equivalent. The All India Council of Technical Education has allowed this to be a credit transfer equivalent, and so on. Therefore, the digital age now is slowly transforming from that of a repository to that of a learning cycle to that of an employment potential area. Okay. The skills part, I don't have the time. I would like to talk about it at some other point. But this presentation that I have, with a little more summary, I would give it to ISACA so that please feel free to download and view all of the details. And you can obviously write to me at any point. This is, if you want to know more about the whole online program, that's the site, and that's the ID which is common to anybody, and that's a password anyone can use. You are a passive viewer. You cannot submit anything to the website, or you cannot, try to interact with the teachers. These are courses which are closed after the courses were run. The contents are basically made available for all the others who did not participate in the course. So this is the system. So we have built this in the Swayam, which is now a national portal for all of India and in all areas of science and all areas of technology. So let me leave myself with the last slide. This is my last slide for this presentation. What we are at is the third principle. From that which is to that which shall be is what we are interested in. And the tools that we have to use, the technology enhanced learning or the digital form that we have today, can actually promote critical thinking, because now people start to learn from each other, people start to interact with each other, people start to join courses. There are visualization and visualizability. I'm finishing in 1 minute. I'm done. Visualizability, and the demonstration and hands-on experience can now be put in all these websites with all the tools we have. It allows building the competitiveness among the individuals and make them think out of the box at a very early age. The technology-enhanced learning allows integration of teaching and learning, and it synchronizes with the environment, whether it's a child, student, adult, all-time learners. It permits mass education and lack of physical infrastructure and teachers. Therefore, today, the digital era has arrived. The digital technology has arrived. It can only get better. It cannot get any worse. And we have sufficient tools. We have sufficient people who are running the system. And we need a lot of you to actually help the system build a credible learning space and make this country the world leader in education 20 years from now, long before many of us can die. Many of us will die. Thank you very much, and thanks, wonderful. I want to thank ISACA for giving me the opportunity, and I want to profusely apologize. One thing I didn't tell you is that I got caught in another traffic, but the traffic worked like the car for Modi. There was no signal stop, and there were no traffic in between. My car virtually flashed in Kelambakam to this place in 45 minutes. Okay, so thank you so much. Yeah, if there are questions, I'll be happy to answer. Yeah. Mic is going to go.
Go near the mic, please.
Come again?
What is the level of knowledge you are imparting on this course?
In this course? I can't judge it. See, these are courses which they are supposed to learn during their academic program. Therefore, these are curriculum-oriented courses. These are not random courses. These are all curricular, pedagogically threaded, and therefore, this is what they are supposed to learn. If the colleges don't teach, they can take these courses and use them to their particular courses. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Can anyone prepare a course and upload?
No, the uploading, this is not a Wikipedia, if that's what you meant. But if you want to upload a course or a process, there are contact points. You might have to write to us saying that you have an experience in this area, which I normally invite many people. You provide what your background is and how many years you have taught that particular program or whatever, or a new topic, whatever you want to. Then you have it reviewed and vetted by a group of peers. So in a sense, it's like a journal publication that you have to. It's not an open-ended curriculum. Even to college teachers, it's not an open-ended. We monitor the course, the quality of the content. Yeah.
Thank you. I really thank you for your
Thank you so
insights,
much.
sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. Can I invite Balaguru to present a memento
That's fine.
to you, sir? Thank you. I
Thank you
really
so much.
appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Sir, so one second, just for the photograph.
Yeah, please be. Please be. Come. Please be. Yeah. Thank you.
Just a quick, let's just take a quick poll on the feedback, please, for this session. Voting pads, your voting pads, keep your voting pads ready. We'll make it quick.
Thank you. Oh, my pleasure. I'm really thankful to you. You guys waited for me. Thank you.
The next one.
Glad I made it. ನಂಬಿಕೆ ಇಲ್ಲ ನನಗೆ. 1:30 ಮಣಿಗೆ ಹಾಗೆ ನೀವು not too late. Was it okay? Huh?
The next one.
Something around the theme of education that they need to look at. Yeah. Hey, Mike, you have to take this mic. I will be talking all over the place. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead with the next one, please. Is it done? Or there's one more? Okay, there's one more. Okay.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hi, Peter. Can you hear me?
All right. Thank you.